This is Help, I'm a Contractor podcast. Hi, I'm Seth Lewis. I am a blue-collar business coach. Finally, someone that understands what contractors actually go through. My goal and vision is to connect business owners with knowledge while tackling some of the industry's toughest challenges. Please subscribe to my content and let's support each other to create awareness for our industry. Check out what I have going on at www.bluecollarbusinesscoach.net. Check out my book that has helped business owners across the country change their business and their life. But for now, it's time for the show. Let's get it. Today on the show, really excited about this episode. Ross Wade, the owner of RJ Community Builders, who do land development and wholesaling, also the owner of RDW Contracting. Really excited about this episode just for a different perspective of how to do land development, how to wholesale properties, and his journey. So here we are. Welcome to the show, Ross. It's great to have you.
Hey, Seth. Good to talk to you again. It's good to be involved.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about who you are, where you're located, before we get into anything else. What do you like to do?
What I like to do is build houses. That's been most of my career. Actually building duplexes, houses, a little bit of multifamily. I'm located here in Washington, Indiana, Southern Indiana. Been here my whole life. Over the last, I'd say, year or so, I'm looking at more of a career change into land development. So basically anything that has to do with building dwelling units for families, building a house for a family, hopes and dreams of the future. That's what we're trying to establish. So
how'd you get into construction, contracting? What's kind of been your journey?
Well, honestly, I've been involved in real estate longer than I've been involved in home building. Back in 2012, 2013, I got married, started a business, and built my own house in the same year. And that's not for the faint of heart, none of those three. And at that time, I was looking for some extra income. I started property managing for some real estate owners locally, and that grew a little bit into, started out as an employee actually, and then started my own LLC in mostly just property management and maintenance. Shook a lot of hands, handed out my card quite a bit to people. Here in Southern Indiana, actually around the area where I'm from, there's a lot more maintenance on real estate. I guess one of the things that got me, I'd say one of the facets of that business that actually got me into working on houses and actually building the houses is because I was mostly flipping houses for these other real estate investors as their property manager. They always say if it's worth doing well, it's worth doing poorly. And, property management, I think at that time I was charging like 10 or 11% of gross rents, and it really increased my revenue. Got a lot of experience working on all sorts of issues on homes. Understood the real estate game very well, how to assess deals, how to flip houses for, other investors. And then I think a couple of years after I started the property management company, I did some plumbing and electrical for a duplex that was GC'd by one of the biggest companies here in Southern Indiana. And two and two clicked together for me, just seeing the instant cash flow on a brand new duplex. So really, when I started my home construction career, it was mostly building turnkey duplexes for other investors, and then going on to do that for myself as well. So, and then along the way, we've had, quite a few custom homes. But really, I'd say most of my education in the early part of my year taught me that I'd rather build something for long-term holds or for investors. It's just a totally different type of game. building a custom home is more building. I always joke and say we don't build houses for men, we build houses for women. And, custom homes can last anywhere from 8 to 9 months. A lot of changes, whereas we're building a duplex for a guy that only cares about the bottom line. And it's a 4 to 5 month process in and out. You got to use all stock materials, any leftover materials go to the next job. It's just, I'd say I'm more of an economist than I am a technician or a craftsman. So that's all kind of blended together as this identity as land development, more wanting to build multifamily. So that's kind of the direction we're heading now.
When you think about, all your experiences, all of them contributed to, this spot where you're at now. I think one of the things that you said before when we were talking was, you had some ventures that you tried here, you tried some ventures here, and then this kind of came to you and said, this is like a great niche to be in. So how did those experiences help take you to this wholesaling and, commercial and can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So really, building multifamily would be geared in the RDW contracting business. But this land development venture that I'm on now was all spurred by me just trying to make a little extra cash on the side, wholesaling. So land wholesales. It's really interesting because in 1 month, a couple of years ago, I thought, man, I could get pretty good at this. I wholesaled about $7,500 worth of wholesales, three different deals in 1 month. And so what I discovered was that the smaller deals, I was up against about 50 competitors on those smaller deals. And maybe only 10 will actually consider offering and 5 actually will. And then, you're just in a bigger pool of people. Well, here locally, there's been a lot of noise about a housing crisis. So the United States is supposed to be short like 5 million homes by the end of 2022. And so I just thought, well, there's less competitors and there's a less pool or a smaller pool of competitors, the bigger the deals I look at. So why don't I look at big land, big acreage, and start trying to wholesale big acreage? And if I can either structure the deal so that I'm the builder, or just wholesale the deal altogether to someone else, some other builder, either way is good. You're kind of right there at the top of the funnel. You're the one creating the jobs and creating the deals, first one in the door. So, and then that was before I actually considered being the owner and operator builder of the developments, which has just come about over here, maybe in the last 6 months or so. Which, by the way, we just got our city plat approval for our 45 home development. Let's see, that was Wednesday evening. We got it from the city.
Awesome.
It's been 10 months and 7 city meetings, lots of changes, financial fallouts. So we're finally here and we're shovel ready here in the next couple of weeks. So
I'll just celebrate that one. That's a big win.
I coached 2 Little League games that night and we celebrated. I had a slushie and some popcorn.
And get some ice cream after, right?
Yeah. I'm definitely wanting to celebrate. But I'm the type of guy, I did come off of a pretty major loss, on a failed investment a few years ago. And it's just been a hard road back. And I'm not, every little bit that I get ahead, I try to stay thankful and stay grateful and just try to ensure that I even get ahead even further. So I'm a little bit skeptical of celebrating yet, just because I know what it's like. I felt like I went from top of the food chain to the bottom pretty quick. Lost a little over $260,000 in 20 months a few years ago, and I want to celebrate, but man, not until that check's in my hand. So
that's right. I think that's really, I love your transparency to even share that. I think that helps so many people because I think there's a lot of business owners that don't talk about some of the struggles. And we all have struggles in business. We all have challenges. I always call it the mask. You go to a networking meeting, you go to this, you put on the mask and you're like, yeah, everything's great. And meanwhile, struggling to make payroll, can't pay the bills. There's a million things that go on there. So I think your story is, inspiring of how you can, be winning, have some challenges, and then find the passion and bounce back. What was it like when you were going through that? What did you learn? What advice can you give to somebody else that might be in the same scenario? There's a couple places that people are. They're at the top and they're not realizing that it's about to go the other way. So is there any sign to look at that? The second thing would be, how do you, if somebody's at the bottom or close to the bottom, how do you regroup and bounce back?
1% every day. That was what woke me up. The book by James Clear, Atomic Habits. It's that steady, gradual grind. It's like the best way I can describe it. And I may say this to all my customers and the people and the contractors that were loyal to me during that time. Let me back up a minute. A few years ago, I had a failed investment on a self-storage, a Class A self-storage. I mean, we built it, we bought the ground. We needed it to be 50% occupied. It was 20% occupied for almost 2 years. I was paying interest only, and it's about to kick into principal plus interest. It was $3,000 to $5,000 a month. We chose to, the best way to describe it is it's almost like that storage complex was a plane. I was betting on that plane. It was going to be a good plane. It is a good plane. It is now. So I left some contractors stale on some payables from that. I got to say this though, during that time, the last 2 to 3 years, my income was still very high. It was just an extreme amount of cash flow issues. I found myself making, I would take 90% of what I made every month and just say, to get out of this, I'm going to deploy all my cash. I'm on a no cash diet. I'm going to throw everything I have at this debt. I gotta, build that snowball back up. Honestly, it was just, I had to downscale my living expenses. It was that daily change of temperature, that you're looking for. Like the best way to describe the last 2 to 3 years is I was heating up an ice cube from 24 degrees to 31 degrees. And now it's just amazing how compound interest works. And once you understand it, compound interest can be your enemy if you've got negative interests acquiring against you, but it can also be your best friend, obviously, if you have assets that are producing cash flow, So I knew I had to get back there, paid everybody back. Our payables, I had like $196,000 in stale payables left over from that investment. I think as of Monday, we were down to like 22. Not stale, just revolving. And what I tell people, and there is no reason ever to not be transparent about that, because I'm transparent about all my wins. Before that major loss, we had built a little under, I think at that time it was about 12.5 million in real estate. Mostly just fourplexes, duplexes, rental houses. We were on a roll, man, building spec houses, one of the fastest growing companies here locally. But I think people's identity change after a major loss like that, and mine didn't. I'm a big identity guy. I believe that, what you believe affects what you think, and what you think affects what you do or say. And then your habits, and then your character and your destiny. It all starts with being what you believe is going to help you become whatever path you're on. And for younger contractors or even older contractors that have just suffered through some losses, like one of my favorite quotes is, I don't focus on my results. I focus on my trajectory. And, you know, if you're habit forming steady processes that ensure your destination, then it's like when I'm training my son to shoot, he's a rifleman. He's 7 and he's lights out with a 22 at about 50 foot. He can shoot a thumbtack out of the bullseye multiple times. And one of the things that helped him the most, and this is up here for me, this is how I look at it. He got over the idea every time he would take a shot when he was younger, whether it was bad or good, he'd check and look at me to see if I thought it was good or bad. And finally, whenever he just got over the results and just trusted the process and trying to build a habit, you know, trying to get that 1% better every day, he stopped caring about what I thought and he just trusted the process, you know. That's the only way to get out of a hole. That's the only way to compound when you're out of the hole, how to compound money. You know, because like I just said, you know, once that ice cube hits 33 degrees, the thermal momentum takes over. And, you know, we don't grow wealth linearly, you know, 1x or x equal y or whatever, 1/1. It's x squared. You know, it's 2, 4, you know, 16, and it just skyrockets. So trust the process. That's the thing. Trust the process. And back to that favorite saying, I tell myself this all the time: don't focus on the results. You know, in wealth, it's like focusing on the results is like someone whose mood changes based on their bank account going up and down. You know, instead of saying, okay, well, what do wealthy people do? Instead of, what do I have in my bank account? You know, so getting out of that hole has been a long journey, but it's, to me, I'm still grinding like I was day one when I decided not to go bankrupt and get out of it. So it's the process. I lost your volume, Seth.
Yeah, that speaks who you are as a person, integrity. It's just a great, you know, story that other people can learn from, to say, hey, this is how you commit to working through it, not bailing and working. So great job there. Just want to commend that. And, you know, communication, talking to people, just a lot of valuable insights that you can take away, you know, from your story there. When you think about wholesaling, I don't want to assume that anybody knows what that is. So can you explain a little bit more of what is the wholesaling? What does that look like? So, you know, people can just understand if they're not familiar with it.
Yeah. So basically a wholesale is taking a piece of paper, a purchase agreement, and committing to a price. And let me back up just a minute. Realtors in some states are a little more strict about what you're allowed to do without a real estate license. And I'm not suggesting anyone go out and practice real estate without having the real estate license, but you have to be very clear about what you're doing. Quite simply, wholesaling is selling the paper and not the property. So if you know a good deal, if you see one and you're willing to commit first and write an offer, and, you know, I don't tell everybody this, but you don't even have to have the money. You know, you just have to have a good out clause. And like I said, the bigger the deals you look at, there's less competitors. And what I found out, there's a heck of a lot more people out there that are not willing to commit first and make an offer. You know, that philosophy of commit first and figure it out later. A lot of people think they have to figure it out later or load up their pockets and then go after the deal. Well, you can get so much farther than everyone else, every one of these competitors in business and life, by just being able to commit first. And like I said, it's taking that piece of paper, knowing what a good deal is, making the offer, and then representing buyers. The difference between a real estate agent and a wholesaler is I represent buyers. I do not represent sellers. I don't take the key. You know, most of the time I'm not trying to wholesale an occupied house anyway, but if I did, I don't take the key. I don't show it. I don't, I've got my guys that I work with on joint ventures. I've got, I know what they're looking for. I know what we can do. So I'll go in, I'll make an offer on a property. I know what improvements we can do. And then I'm simply either just selling that piece of paper for a fee, wholesale fee. The best way I can describe it is if you wholesale a house and say it's worth $200,000 to you, and you offered $100,000 on it and they accepted it, you go to your team of buyers and you sell it for $120,000 and you got a $20,000 wholesale fee. Now with land, it's even better because the potential, there's so many different things you can do. So what I've learned is just learning how the wholesale game works is like I said earlier, the top of the funnel. It's sort of the creator of the deal. And if you can find a good deal, you can find the capital for sure.
So tell me a little bit what that looks like in the next step. So you find a deal, we're talking about wholesaling here. You find a deal. Do you have to how do you find investors? What do you do there? Is it just reaching out to people, or how are you building this flow?
Yeah. Mostly just from contacts that I've worked with, up to this point. I'm a big guy on networking. I do think there are $10,000 an hour lunches. They don't always pan out that way, but I can tell you that that's true. And there's $10 an hour work, there's $100 an hour work, there's $1,000 an hour work, and there's even $10,000 an hour work. And most of the time that networking is at the top of that. But, the guys that I know that are potential joint venture partners, or guys that are going to buy these deals, are guys that already have real estate. Some of them like single family homes. Some of them like they want me to just build turnkey apartments and duplexes for them. Some of them are property managers. It's mostly just knowing what your margins are and how much percentage you're willing to give away, and being very clear. Having a good out clause, like I said, on your purchase agreement. And it's pretty simple. Like I said, you're either selling the paper or you're selling a percentage of the deal to somebody. So
just kind of walking through it. So you find a place, you go to your investors, you say, hey, I found this place. We could buy it for this. And then you're selling it to them, and then they're doing something with it, or are you building and contracting it there?
I've done both. For instance, the land development, the 45 home development that we're doing, it's a joint venture, 50-50. Started out as a wholesale. Basically, I said, hey, I'll trade my time for money and or equity, and you trade your money for time. You go out and sail the ocean while I make you equity. And there's a lot of guys that are willing to trade their money for time. A step-by-step process of most wholesales. Like I've got one here on a neighboring house. I live next to a golf course and a hospital here in a pretty good area. And there's a sort of a house that's been dilapidated for a while. It's got some pretty decent bones though. And so on that one, I had to chase it for a few months. It's a short sale process. I made an offer that was, most of the time my offers are a hit in the mouth. But that's called anchoring. You be careful of the guy that wants to meet you in the middle, because oftentimes he's a poor judge of distance. So I will say that's step one. Step one is offering not just always low, but don't listen to what everyone else thinks it's worth. What the after repair value is. What it's going to cost to put it in. Make an offer, anticipate a counter. If you don't get a counter, then whatever number you settle on has to be sellable. So then it's just taking that purchase agreement. I've got an email list of 5 guys, and then I instantly send it to those 5 guys first. I let them look through it. I will say this, those guys now get second option, because the gentleman who invested in this company with me, we started the LLC, and he's 51% owner and I'm 49% owner of this particular development out here for the 45 dwellings. Now he gets first pick. So because he not only bet on me by wholesaling the deal with me, but he also said, hey, let's go do another one. I'm not betting on this deal. I'm betting on you. I'm betting on a horse. And so now I'll never forget that he was willing to do that. I mean, it's a pretty good amount of money, and I'm grateful. So now I chase deals and I keep those within our LLC first. And then once we know we don't want to do that deal, we send it on to the list of investors.
We'll be right back to the show. I want to invite you to my Blue Collar Mastermind group. This is a group of blue-collar business owners who share input on tough topics, support, celebrate, and learn from each other. The world's best business owners, leaders, actors, athletes, and musicians all have coaches or are part of a similar group to grow and succeed. If you want more from your business, have limited time, don't want to break the bank, this group is for you. Learn more and apply to the group at bluecollarbusinesscoach.net. So let's say somebody is hearing this and they're saying, I would like to do this. Maybe they're in a custom home building and they say, this is sounding appealing. I've always been interested in wholesaling. How do you go about finding somebody to partner with like this? What are some tips? What are some things that you could give to somebody that might be considering doing something like this?
Well, one of the biggest tips is to be transparent and honest. And most of that is just throwing the purchase agreement out there. Whatever number you settled on with your seller, be willing to give away the lion's share to a shark, because, if you make that, I like for my investors who choose to invest in me to come back happy. I'd rather make 50% of an amazing deal than 100% of a decent one. And, the best analogy I can think of there is be willing to share an entire watermelon instead of being greedy and taking an entire grape for yourself. And to answer that question specifically, to find the right guys, I suggest joining real estate groups online, or follow a podcast, get on some forums. I know a great resource in the past for me was biggerpockets.com, Bigger Pockets podcast. There's all kinds of guys out there that are looking for something better than the stock market return. And, the more money these guys have to deploy, just show them on their first deal. Like if you're wanting a continuing partnership, just be willing to give them the lion's share, because it's going to double over. I'd rather have consistent base hits for 10 years than to go for the grand slam and, strike out. So my advice for people that are getting into this is probably three things. It's if you're a builder, start looking at land, start learning about infrastructure, start learning the processes of what makes a development feasible. It's got to have, the stars have to align. So first step is identifying the property. Okay. A good rule of thumb, I know I'm giving away some golden tokens here, but I've studied this pretty hardcore. When you find the land and you can make sure the sewer, water, and electric is there, accessible, or if you have to do private treatment systems like septics or anything like that, you got to know how that affects lot size and all those things. But most generally, it's knowing how to calculate lineal footage of roads, stormwater detention, public or rural water has to be there, and electric. And when those stars align, there has to be another one. The seller has to want to sell. So you're going to strike out a lot. I'd say you have to look at 10 deals before you land one. Don't be afraid to commit first. I mean, it's just an offer. Make an offer. Get it going. You're gonna get 50% farther than the rest of your competitors because you're not a tire kicker. You just got to commit, throw out a price, say I'll commit, give yourself a 90-day window, give yourself a good out clause on the contract. Most of the time it's something like, you know, a lot of people have an inspection clause in there, and it doesn't have to say that it has to pass inspection. All it has to say in there is that you have to approve of the inspection. So the inspection can come back perfect. And as long as it says in there that the approval of the buyer's inspection could mean anything. It could mean, oh, okay, well, we thought it had underwater, we thought it had electric issues out there, and we were hoping that we could value add by fixing that, but it doesn't. So we pass, you know. So it could be any one of those things. And then back to the list of 3 things. So it's identifying the property. Secondly, it's knowing how many lots you can get on it. So how you're going to capitalize on it. And then third is finding the joint venture, or if you can do it yourself, that's fine. But really the precursor to doing this as a career is learning how to wholesale in general. Okay. And maybe it's not wholesaling, maybe it's just knowing a good deal. And once you have the capital, it's not wholesaling, it's actually just purchasing, but it's getting in that process of looking at a lot of deals. You know, this is a little tip. I'll help anybody that's trying to get in this game. I'm an abundant mind guy. I want everybody to win. Here in Indiana, Southern Indiana, a good rule of thumb is the infrastructure improvement cost should equal about $20,000 per lot. And that means a lot. That's anywhere between probably a quarter acre and 3/4 acre. Most generally it falls between $20,000 and $25,000 per lot in infrastructure. So like if I look at a deal, I know what it's zoned, which by the way, I said earlier, the infrastructure, having all those stars aligned, that's another big hurdle, is making sure that it's zoned right, or making sure that it's not going to be a spot zoning where you're trying to put a residential development out in the middle of an industrial park, you know. So there's just a lot of things that have to be, and the more deals you look at, the quicker you're going to be able to identify those things. And then, you know, mostly after that, it's just execution. You know, it's making sure you got the right contractors and partners involved to, you know, get the deal done.
What would you say, is there anything else where this process would work? So again, I'm thinking a little bit outside the box, but there's a lot of different people that are in different industries, service businesses, different types of construction. Just a crazy thought, or, you know, if you have any ideas, is there anywhere where this system would still work, or another venture that somebody could do using this same kind of principle of having investors, wholesaling something, and, you know, building equity or long-term wealth?
No doubt. One of my favorite philosophers, I guess you could say, or someone that I follow pretty closely, is Naval Ravikant. Naval's got a podcast. He's been on Tim Ferriss show, or Joe Rogan show, and Tim Ferriss a couple times. And he's an angel investor. And really, it's the same triangle of operation as what we're talking here in land development. It's money, it's people, and it's the deal. And if you are a deal maker and you're good at finding a good deal and understanding that a good piece of land that can have some duplexes put on it is the same as me going down the street and looking at a pharmacy that's it's owner occupied and it's not ran very well, and there's a few things that few low hanging fruits that you can identify that would value add instantly. It's understanding that that's the same idea. You could go write a purchase agreement of that pharmacy right then and there. And then you could take it to investors. It's the same. It's the money, it's the people, it's the deal. And the people is the team that you have. It's the contractors you have, the thing that makes it go. The deal itself is a business, a piece of land, an asset, a house, anything that can be improved and resold. And then, so yeah, you got the money. The money's the last part. And the money will always come. It'll always come if it's a good enough deal. And especially, like we were talking about earlier, the compound interest. I'm already starting to see this a little bit. I've been in real estate for well, since about 2012, 13. People know me as that, as a property manager, as a builder, all things houses, basically. Well, I do see that in my business. Obviously, most home builders probably do, is as they build houses, you have to look for less houses to build. People know you. It's like your brand is being built. So it's the same as establishing deal as an angel investor or a wholesaler or a land developer. The more deals you do, the deals find you. It's like luck gets luckier, as you go, even though I don't really believe in luck, but yeah, it's the same process. So I would just advise anyone who wants to grow a business and be an entrepreneur and be financially free to just understand that it's really simple. I think we try to overcomplicate it, but another book that I suggested to everyone I meet is Stephen Arnio's book, Money. Well, Money People Deal. The whole book is just about joint ventures. It's about being a trustworthy, reliable deal maker, and understanding that if you want to go fast, go alone. Like if you want to build a business, you can do it by yourself. But at the end of the day, you take yourself out of that business and it's not worth anything. But, it's that idea of joint ventures. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you got to go together. And when I learned that, it's kind of the cliche, in elementary school, you see the posters of like the cats jumping over the walls, like you can do it, just if you dream it, you can do it. But that stuff is so true. Like I saw one the other day and it's so true in my life is when you start focusing on what value you are providing others, or if you start focusing on what you give instead of what you get, you will start to get like you've never seen. And it's that abundant mindset. It's the opposite of greed. It's, greed says, well, how can I score this? How can I score something out of this? And abundance mindset is kind of like greed, except it's like, okay, well, how does everybody win in this deal? And that's a deal maker.
It's such a great point because, we live our life with not everybody, but a lot of people live their life with a closed fist, I'll call it. And when you're holding on to something, you can't let anything else in. You just hold on to it. You hold on to it. You hold on to it. But when you have it open, you can let things go out, but you can also let things come in. So being able to, give to others. I mean, when you give a pass to somebody, when you give a shout out, when you give something, you give energy, it comes back. And there's always somebody or that it doesn't come back. But if you're doing that as a pattern in your life, way more is going to come back. And it's so interesting when you look at individual markets. When I work with, contractors and business owners across the country, sometimes the initial mindset is, we don't want to collaborate. We don't want to do anything in our market with people that are in our same industry. And there's so much work out there. There's so much, for good companies. I mean, if you're doing it right, you're going to have work. There's so much more than you can even handle. So I'd rather work with other contractors that are treating people fairly, have good reputations, and be able to collaborate versus everybody they feel like you have to leave the state to be able to work with somebody else because they're going to keep, take your secrets. So that it's tough, but that it comes back in such a powerful way. And you just never know where you can support each other. Again, it has to be the right person. They have to be a good person and somebody that is going to work together, and they don't have bad intentions, obviously, because there are people that might try to take your workforce or steal your deal. But talking about quality people, and when you find that, it's just a game changer. But I love that example of just living a life of abundance. Tough for people to do. It's really tough for people to do. They say it, they like it, they want it, but they still want to just hold on to whatever they have. So, I think it's awesome that you shared that. and deals come to you when you can do that. So, I mean, just some really great points there.
I love that it comes back, and that's so true. One thing that popped in my head when you said that about working with other contractors in your field and industry is capitalism and wealth building is a positive sum game. It's not a zero sum game. For me to win, someone else does not have to lose. I will go way out of my way to not even, I'm not a reactive person or even a retaliatory person. I'll go out of my way just to make sure that people know that I want them to do well, even if they're at fault. And it goes back to that mindset of if everyone takes responsibility, the load gets lighter. But if all your competitors are these guys that you're hoping to see lose, well, then you're wasting energy hoping to see someone lose instead of you just focusing on winning. Or say somebody did you wrong and you just can't let go of it, and you're holding on to that too, and that's an anchor that'll take you down. So yeah, I mean, it's not a zero sum game; it's a positive sum game, and we just have to get past this mentality that we gotta earn it all for ourselves, and get in a creative mode about creating value instead of just making money.
When you look at your wholesaling, is it a balance between making money today and investing in the future? Or is it like, how do you structure that? Are you basically saying, hey, here's a deal, I'm going to make this today? Or are you actually putting equity in to get, money or rental income or whatever for the long term?
All of those are options. Right now I'm looking at, I mean, just as an example, I've got 5 deals I'm looking at. Well, I guess 4 now because one's in the bag. One of them, here's a scenario. We've got a 20,000 square foot building that I'm trying to get locked up for a certain price. It has room for some storage, a couple offices, 5 apartments. It's already got a pole building on the property that rents for about what it would cash flow as a purchase outright right now. On that deal, I would create equity by building the apartments for interest in the ownership of it. So I'd be creating my own equity in that deal. Obviously, when you have a deal that has that type of equity that can be built, then you have a deal that can be sold. Because if the partner that's willing to work with you understands, I mean, you really can't lose. Just like what I was saying earlier, being at the top of the funnel is being the creator of the deal. It's being the deal maker. It's like, honestly, 50% of the process. And then the other 25 is the people and the money. And then I've got other just outright wholesale deals that I'm looking at where I would just buy these abandoned lots or propose that someone should just bulldoze the house that's there and just build a spec. Or, a lot of the wholesale deals I look at, a little hint is I'll drive around and look for houses that don't have meter bases on them for a long time. And most of the time, if you go to the city, they'll rule it as abandoned, and it's a good way to, find a good cheap wholesale. So, I mean, right now I'm just working the process of finding the good deals. And then it's sort of a top-down approach from, okay, I can wholesale this thing right here, take a little bit less and have it right now. Or I can promote this deal as a joint venture and, create a little bit of work for myself and then also get more later, or something that cash flows. Or you can build it out turnkey and sell it when it's done, kind of like a flip, and get max out, max risk, but max profit.
When you say using, like, trading, let's say materials or labor, do people do it like full out, or are they saying, okay, I'm going to donate half of my labor, still get paid, and then take half of that towards the equity? Or what do you recommend? What do you see? What's kind of common?
Well, this day and age, whether you're building a rental property or building a spec house or whatever you're doing, there's a lot of margin for contractors, and I think it's silly that you wouldn't create a little bit of wage for yourself along the way. Now, sometimes just to get the deal done, you may not have that option, but if there's enough margin on the deal, I suggest bidding when you're setting up the deal, bid the work as if you were not going to be a part of the deal and someone was just paying you, and it was dead money after that. It was just money paid to you in your pocket, not growing. Because then when you're evaluating that deal, the reduction off of those prices will be the equivalent of what your equity is going to be in the deal. So you want to start with that top-down approach, so max it out. I'm not saying inflate it or pad it, but like, for instance, here's on our land development deal, this is sort of the way we are going to structure it. There's 25 homes and there's 20 apartments, townhomes, whatever you want to call them. And we're going to start with building the homes first. We're going to build the first 4 houses in 4 months. So we're going to have panelization. We're going to streamline subcontractors and try to build 2 houses at the same time. I mean, I've put a house watertight in 20 days before, but it was good weather. So it's going to be a stretch, but I like to shoot for the stars. But how we're going to do that deal is, so I am 50% owner of the land. So every time a lot sells, a house gets built or sold, whether I build the house or not, which we will be building them all, but just in the future, if something changes on the covenants and somebody wants to start buying lots and building houses out there, either way, whether somebody builds a house and sells it, or whether we build it and sell it, whether the lot sells anything, I get 50% of that. So I'm willing to mitigate some of the risk for the group by building at a discount, because it leaves us the option to go ahead and rent that house out where it'll actually cash flow in the meantime before it sells. And then also I know that I don't want to pay interest on the loan higher than I need to, especially since this house is going to sell for whatever it's going to retail sell for anyway. So I can either get paid now or later. I'd like to get paid a little bit now, but keep that down. And then when it sells, maybe you have to just worry about capital gains tax instead of interest.
So one thing that's super important in all this, and a common theme that I'm hearing, is you got to know your numbers. You got to know what to invest. You got to know how much to put down or make an offer. You got to know what's coming back. You got to know if it's going to cash flow. You got to know this. So a lot of contractors, this sometimes becomes the thing that comes back to bite them because they're not understanding the numbers. It's mostly people are so good at their trade, so good at what they've done, whether it's building or construction, excavating, paving, whatever it may be. But it comes back to the numbers, knowing if it is a good deal, knowing how much you can spend, knowing what your investors want back. So I think that's something that's so important. I just want to highlight for anybody that's listening, if you need to know a spot to start, in addition to this, you got to make sure you know your numbers. And I'm an advocate for that for any business, because it really unlocks the potential. It helps you understand how to get to the next level. What is the next level? How much money you're making? What to charge? I mean, there's a million things when it comes to finances. And if you don't know how to do it, make sure you have somebody in your corner that can help you, because that's a game changer in the process. And you can lose a ton or make a ton when you understand these things.
Yep. Having the right team in place is very important as well. Yeah, I'd highly suggest that.
Absolutely. A couple quick questions to wrap up. Just some quick fire. The construction industry would be better if
customers complained less.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. I'm sure a lot of people can agree with that.
No, hey, that's the thing. Some lighthearted. That's just the nature of it, right? The customer is always right. Or you can get in the home building business where you build it and they either like it or they don't. They buy it or they don't, so.
I can build a blank in my sleep.
House.
Wouldn't expect anything different. My biggest challenge is
Trust.
Biggest skill?
Selling.
Cabin or beach house?
My wife would say beach house. I'm a mountain guy. I'd like the cabin in the mountains.
Who's winning that battle?
Well, we are planning a trip to Hilton Head Beach here shortly.
There you go.
Yeah.
Last thing you got on Amazon?
Book.
That's a good one. Favorite brand of equipment?
Pasload.
I want other business owners in construction to know what?
How to sell. How to market.
Russ, I really appreciate you being on the show. Great stuff, great information, a lot of takeaways for people. So I really appreciate you sharing some of your knowledge, some of your insights, and being on the show today.
Awesome, Seth. It was great. I look forward to getting to know you a little bit more. I know you got a coaching business, and I think what you're doing here makes a lot of sense, and I think you can help a lot of people. So keep it up.
Thanks again.
Yep. See you later.
Hey, it's Seth. Thanks for listening. For more information about my Blue Collar Mastermind group, Blue Collar Gear, free resources, or my book, go to bluecollarbusinesscoach.net. You can subscribe, like, and share if you enjoy this. Thanks again.